How fear related to the human development. 2. Can fear be learned or acquired?
How fear related to human development. Based on studies, science proves that being exposed to a certain situation that produce persistent fear can disturb the development structures of the brain. Fear has the ability to affect learning, memory, and erasing processes in the brain of humans. Fears serve as a signal of danger, threat, and motivational conflict, and triggers responses that affect human development. Can fear be learned or acquired? Most fears are learned. Fear can be learned through direct experience and through social means, such as verbal warnings and observations of others that are influenced by the culture and environment of an individual.
3. Is there any possibility to detach from fear? 4. Does fear change our behavior?
According to John Watson, when they conducted the Little Albert experiment, the conditioning of the behavior reflects on how the person would react on the stimuli that you are presenting repeatedly. The question, is there any possibility to detach from that fear? No. Sometimes we have to acknowledge our fear. Fear keeps us alive by signaling us from different danger. It seems like it serves as a warning for us whenever there's unwanted feeling or if we sense harmful things that we are afraid of. Fear resides in the amygdala part of the brain. Facing the things that troubles you is the only way to be free, because fear isn't going anywhere. It is always there. It is just a matter on how will you manage until it becomes manageable. Does fear change our behavior? As we go along the journey in our life, we encounter many things that may affect on the ways of our living. It can be a good or bad. Some aspect affects in a way that sometimes it would be a lesson why we change psychologically. But it depends on how we will handle it. Fear is our emotional reaction that may driven to our behavior. And yes, fear really does change our behavior. It could be a trauma for someone who causes you so much pain or anxiety. Like what B.F. Skinner believed, it wasn't what comes before behavior that influences it, but rather what comes directly after it. When we experience something unusual, there is always a possibility that we would be hesitant to risk again, and the fear that it may be happening again.
5. How does the responses and stimuli associated with fear? 6. How does fear affects us psychologically?
How does response and stimuli associated with fear? Fear is described as an unpleasant emotion caused by the belief that something or someone is dangerous and likely to cause pain or a threat. Essentially, fear is a chain reaction in the brain that starts with a stressful stimulus and ends with the release of chemicals that cause a racing heart, fast breathing, and energized muscles. This emotion stimulates several parts of our brain such as sensory cortex, thalamus, hypothalamus, amygdala, and the hippocampus. Fear response produced through fear conditioning. Fear conditioning is a learned fear response to an object that may or may not be harmful. In Pavlovian fear conditioning, in which organisms learn to predict aversive events, the original neutral stimulus or context. This can be done by pairing the neutral stimulus with an aversive stimulus. Example, an electric shock, loud noise, or unpleasant odor. Just like when Michael Stevens tried Dr. Tomislav Buzanek's fear conditioning using a mundane, harmless geometric shape and electricity crackles recorded scream, which Michael is being conditioned to fear a purple square. How does fear affect us psychologically? Living under constant threat has a serious health consequences. Once the fear pathways are ramped up, the brain reacts in predictable ways. The brain reacts immediately to signal from the amygdala instead of more rational processing. When in this overactive state, sometimes called amygdala hijack, the brain perceives events as negative. The brain stores all the details surrounding the danger. These memories tend to be very durable, although they may also be fragmented. All the details of a fearful event may bring back the memory, or it may cause us to feel afraid without knowing why, because these cues may see them as a predictor of threat. Example, the Lucifer stimuli, let's say a purple square or a green circle, seeing them suddenly together, makes us expect a worse outcome than seeing stimulus individually. And reacting to the cues associated with the previous danger often happens with a post-traumatic stress disorder, or the PSTD. Psychologically, fear impacts our thinking and decision-making in negative ways, leaving us susceptible in intense emotion and impulsive reactions.
7. How infants and young children first come to recognize and differentiate a fearful face from other emotional expressions. 8. How does behaviorism theory explain the learning process of fear in individuals, and how does this learned fear influence their subsequent behavior?
How infants and young children first come to recognize and differentiate a fearful face from other emotional expressions. Infants spend more time scanning fearful faces than neutral or happy faces, and they show greater brain activity in certain face processing areas when looking at fearful faces as early 7 months of age. Infants' brain responses to fearful faces versus happy faces are distinct, with greater attention allocated to fearful faces even when the infants do not consciously perceive the faces. How does behaviorism theory explain the learning process of fear individuals, and how does this learned fear influence their subsequent behavior? Watson was a pioneer in behavioral psychology who developed a key discipline known as behaviorism. He believed psychology as a discipline should only focus on behavior. Since it's measurable and verifiable, Watson is most notable for his work on conditioning and the conditioning process, which is what the Little Albert experiment focused on. The experiment demonstrate that the little child could be conditioned to fear stimulus that the child was not previously afraid of, which is also known as a neutral stimulus. This finding was also generalized to include other similar looking objects or
9. How do we come to understand ourselves and our relationship with others? Is our social learning experience different from the way we learn about the physical world? 10. How can social learning and observational learning contribute to the development of phobias and fear? What are some effective interventions for addressing these issues from a social cognitive perspective?
Come to understand ourselves and our relationship with others. Is social learning experience different from the way we learn about the physical world? To understand yourself is to disappear the working of your brain and discover what special building blocks inside you make you you. It's a vital key to any healthy relationship and can lead to so many amazing things like self-love, an increased sense of confidence, and being a better communicator. Social learning theory is the idea that humans learn from observing and imitating the behavior modeled by others. Bandura labeled this phenomenon observational learning. In short, it is not necessary to have a direct experience of something in order to learn. Number 10, how can social learning and observational learning contribute to the development of phobias and fear? What are some effective interventions for addressing these issues from social cognitive perspective? Humans can acquire through the observation of others, learning models. Threat response. This response can be direct response to aversive stimuli or anticipatory responses to threats. Most research focus on learning from observation of direct response only. Conditioning as an explanation of phobic responding aroused from Watson and Rayner's 1920 famous demonstration that aversive and avoidant responses towards a previously neutral stimulus could be learned.